Welcome to my channel, where you find horror stories that scare you. Before watching, please press like to support me in producing more stories. This helps in spreading the video and reaching more people. Thank you for your support and enjoy watching. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over the vast desert landscape. As I cruised along the empty highway, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The road stretched endlessly ahead, flanked by nothing but dry sand and the occasional cactus. I'd driven through this stretch of desert many times before, but today it felt different. Something in the air was unsettling. For the past 15 years, I've been a long-haul trucker, hauling cargo across the American Southwest. My job is routine in the sense that I've seen it all: the quiet roads, the never-ending miles, and the solitude that comes with being on the road for hours at a time. But something about today felt ... strange. My name's Ray Harmon, and the truck I'm driving, a Peterbilt 389, is like a second home to me. The cabin is a mess, but it's comfortable. Empty coffee cups litter the passenger seat, and I can feel the worn leather of the seat mold to my body from countless hours on the road. There's something oddly peaceful about the endless desert, but at the same time, it can feel eerie, like the land holds secrets, buried deep beneath the shifting sands. I was hauling industrial equipment, nothing exciting, just another routine delivery to Phoenix. It was a simple job, one I could do with my eyes closed. The highway through the Sonoran Desert had been a regular path for me, but today everything felt too quiet. Not a single vehicle had passed me in over an hour. The usual desert wildlife was nowhere to be seen. No roadrunners darting across the asphalt, no hawks soaring overhead. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle from my CB radio. The silence felt unnatural, like the world had momentarily paused as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with deep oranges and reds. I found myself questioning whether I should keep driving. I'd originally planned to make it to Gila Bend before nightfall, but the quietness of the road had me wondering if it might be better to just push through and drive all night, leaving the desert far behind me. Just as I was considering this, the crackling of my CB radio interrupted my thoughts. At first, it was just static, but then I heard a voice, a faint, desperate plea for help. My heart skipped a beat. The voice, although distant, was unmistakable. Help, ... Please, someone help me. My pulse quickened as I gripped the radio. Mike, this is Truck 33. I hear you. Where are you? What's your location? The voice crackled again, filled with panic. I don't know where I am. It's dark ... I can't see anything. Please help me. The desperation in her voice sent a shiver down my spine. This was no ordinary call for help. There was something ... wrong about it. The radio was filled with static, but I could still make out the trembling voice of a young woman. Are you hurt? I asked, trying to steady my voice. Can you see anything? Any landmarks? There was a pause, followed by more static. Then there's something out here. I can hear it. Please hurry. I frowned. A cold chill washed over me. This didn't feel right. But the code among truckers is to help when you can. And even though every instinct was screaming at me to turn back, I couldn't ignore her. "I'll try to help," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Keep talking. I'll follow your signal." The GPS in my truck showed nothing but the endless desert ahead. No towns, no side roads, just barren land. But the radio signal was growing stronger, so I knew I was heading in the right direction. Or at least, I hoped I was. As I followed the signal, my mind couldn't help but wander. I'd heard the stories dailies from other truckers at rest stops about ghostly voices on the radio, about strange signals that led drivers astray, never to be seen again. Those stories had always been passed off as urban legends, just something to make the long hours on the road more interesting. But now, the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. I kept calling out into the radio. "Hello, are you still there? Can you hear me?" "Yes," the voice responded faintly. I think I see lights." "Is that you?" I scanned the horizon, but there was nothing. The desert stretched out in front of me, a vast and empty void. "I don't see anything yet," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Keep talking. Please, hurry. It's getting closer," she whispered, her voice trembling with fear. The dread that had been creeping up on me intensified. Something wasn't right. The thought of continuing down this path made me hesitate. But I had no choice now. I had to keep going. As I pressed on, I noticed something, a dirt road off the main highway. It wasn't on any map I had seen, but the radio signal was growing stronger, pulling me toward it. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned onto the dirt road, my truck bouncing and jerking as I navigated the rough terrain. The headlights cut through the darkness, casting long shadows against the jagged rocks that lined the road. The air was cold now, the desert night settling in, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was out there watching me. Double quotes, "Hello. Can you still hear me?" I called again into the radio. "Yes," the voice came back, now more desperate. "I hear you. Please, hurry. It's right behind me." I gripped the steering wheel tighter as I sped down the narrow road. Every instinct told me to turn around, to forget this whole thing. But I couldn't. There was something about her voice, something in the urgency that made me feel like I had no other choice. And then, just as I rounded a bend, I saw it, a figure dot. First, I thought it was a trick of the light. But no, it was real. A dark shape at the edge of my headlights, moving swiftly. Too swiftly, my breath caught in my throat as I slammed on the brakes. The figure in the darkness moved faster than anything I'd ever seen. It wasn't human, there was no mistaking that. In the span of a few heartbeats, it darted between rocks, its movements fluid and unnatural, almost predatory. My instincts screamed at me to run, to put as much distance between myself and whatever that thing was. But I couldn't turn back. Not now. I had to find her. Keep talking, I'm right behind you. I called into the radio, my voice shaking slightly despite my efforts to sound calm. I see you, she replied breathlessly, her voice full of terror. Please, help me. It's here, it's coming. The blood in my veins ran cold. The way she said it, it's coming, sent chills up my spine. Something was hunting her, but what? I tried to ignore the growing dread in my gut and focused on the road ahead. As I pressed the gas pedal harder, the truck rattled and bucked over, the uneven terrain struggling to keep up. The figure in the distance was gaining on me, and my headlights only seemed to make it worse, illuminating the creature, but not enough to fully make sense of what I was seeing. The voice on the radio crackled again, barely audible, but still, there, I can hear it. It's right behind me. ... Please, help. I looked at the dash, and the GPS was still showing nothing but an endless stretch of desert. But the signal on the radio grew stronger. My gut told me I was close. I couldn't stop now, but then, out of nowhere, the voice cut out. The radio was silent for a few agonizing seconds, leaving me in an eerie quiet. Hello, I called again, my heart pounding in my chest. Nothing. I reached over, twisting the dial to adjust the frequency. The static was maddening. I had to try harder, try to find her. But just as I thought I'd lost her completely, the radio sputtered back to life. Ray, ... it's me, ... Her voice was weak, trembling, almost lost to the static, but it was still her. My grip tightened on the wheel. I could feel her fear through the radio, and it made my own skin crawl. Where are you? I demanded, my eyes scanning the dark expanse of desert around me. The headlights barely illuminated the road, and it felt like the world beyond was an impenetrable black void. I don't know. I can't see anything, but it's getting closer. The words haunted me as I pushed the truck forward, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. This wasn't just a simple case of helping someone stranded. This was something far worse. I couldn't explain it, but I could feel it in my bones. As I kept driving, the road ahead suddenly opened up. I found myself on a narrow, winding path that dipped down into what appeared to be a basin surrounded by jagged rocks. It was almost as if the land itself was closing in around me. I took a deep breath and slowed the truck as I carefully navigated the terrain, my eyes darting in every direction, searching for any sign of movement. There, just ahead, I saw it a small, barely visible dirt road branching off from the main path, almost hidden among the shadows. Without thinking, I turned onto it, the truck, scraping against rocks and gravel as it fought to maintain traction. The headlights cut through the dark like twin beacons, illuminating the path ahead. But even with the headlights, I still couldn't shake the feeling that something was out, there in the dark, watching me, waiting. I see lights. She suddenly gasped through the radio, her voice shaking with hope. Are you ... are you here? I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, heart racing. I'm coming, I called back. Just hold on. The truck careened down the dirt road, the engine roaring as the headlights sliced through the night. I could see the lights now distant, but growing closer. There was a faint outline of something just ahead, something that resembled a small building in the distance. But that's when I saw Ita's shape, moving in the darkness, just beyond the light's reach. My stomach dropped as I realized that it wasn't alone. More shapes emerged from the darkness, moving swiftly on all fours, just like the first one. There were more of them. My eyes widened in disbelief. What the hell are those things? I muttered under my breath, my mind reeling. They were ... men. Once, Sarah's voice came through the radio, almost a whisper, before the experiments. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. Experiments. What kind of experiments could turn a man into that ... thing? I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles white. There were no words for what I was seeing. This wasn't just a nightmare, it was a nightmare that had somehow crawled into the real world. The creatures were closing in fast, and my heart raced. I had to keep going, but my instincts told me that no matter how fast I drove, I couldn't outrun them. They were too fast, too relentless. I slammed on the brakes, my tires skidding on the dirt road as the creatures began to encircle the truck. My headlights illuminated them, revealing grotesque, twisted figures with sharp claws and elongated limbs. Their faces were a sickening blend of human and animal, with eyes that gleamed with an unnatural yellow light. I couldn't take my eyes off them, frozen in terror. My heart thudded in my chest, but I couldn't make myself look away. They were coming closer, moving with terrifying speed. Suddenly, Sarah screamed through the radio, "Ray, don't stop. Keep going," without thinking. I slammed my foot on the gas again, sending the truck lurching forward. The creatures howled in the distance, their cries echoing through the desert night. The truck skidded wildly, the trailer swaying dangerously as I fought to maintain control. "Keep going," Sarah urged, bracing herself against the dashboard. "The road will get better once we're out of this basin." I pushed the truck as hard as I could, my heart in my throat. What the hell were those things? How could they be real? And why was Sarah so calm about it? There was so much she wasn't telling me, but I didn't have time to question her now. We had to survive. The road ahead was getting smoother, but the creatures were still closing in. I glanced in the side mirror, and for a split second I saw a flash of movement. They were gaining on us. I could hear the creatures' snarls growing louder as they pursued us, moving faster than any animal I'd ever seen. The tension was suffocating. We were running out of time, and I could feel it pressing down on me. The truck swerved as I raced down the road, desperately trying to put some distance between us and whatever those things were. "Are we going to make it?" I shouted, though I wasn't sure if I was asking Sarah or myself. "We will," she said, her voice grim but firm. "We just have to get to the perimeter. Once we're through it, they won't be able to follow us." The words barely registered in my brain as I pushed the truck harder. There was no time to think about the perimeter she mentioned. All I knew was that we had to keep going. The creatures weren't just chasing us, they were hunting us with an intelligence that sent a chill through my bones. We were approaching a high ridge now, and I could see the familiar line of transmission towers looming in the distance. It was the facility she had mentioned, the one that housed whatever twisted. Military experiments had created these monsters. How much farther? I grunted, pushing the truck to its limits. Just a little more, she said, her voice tight with fear and resolve. We'll be safe once we cross the barrier. I didn't understand it, but I didn't have time to question her. All I knew was that there were monsters behind us, and the only thing standing between us and death was that perimeter. We reached the ridge, and I could see the towers now. There was no turning back. Stay close, I shouted as we neared the perimeter, but as we drew closer, a dark shape suddenly appeared in front of us, cutting off our escape. The truck skidded to a halt as I saw a helicopter descend from the sky, its spotlight blinding. "They're here," Sarah muttered, her voice full of dread. "It's the cleanup crew." Before I could even react, the helicopter hovered directly in our path, its powerful rotor blades kicking up dust, the spotlight flashing across our windshield. I slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. A man leaning out of the helicopter door aimed a rifle at us, his eyes cold and merciless. "Drive," Sarah screamed, her voice panicked. Without thinking, I slammed my foot down on the gas. The truck lurched forward, swerving wildly over the rough terrain. A shot rang out, and the bullet hit the side of the truck with a sickening thud. My heart pounded as I fought to keep control, but it was becoming harder with every bump and jolt. "Who the hell are they?" I shouted over the roar of the engine, my grip tightening on the wheel. "Private contractors," Sarah gasped, bracing herself as we bounced over another rock. "They're here to clean up the mess. No witnesses, no paper trail." Another shot rang out, this one striking the side mirror and sending shards of glass flying. I ducked instinctively, still fighting to keep the truck steady. The helicopter stayed on our tail, its spotlight tracking us like a predator. "They're not going to let us go," I muttered under my breath. "How are we going to make it through this?" "There's a junction ahead," Sarah said, her voice frantic. "We can take the paved road and lose them in the next town. It's our only chance." But the helicopter was closing in, and the creatures were still out there, somewhere in the darkness. Our escape was anything but certain. I pushed the truck harder, praying we'd make it. The sound of the helicopter's rotors grew louder, and I could see the faint outline of the transmission towers just ahead. If we could make it past them, we'd be safe. But then, as if on cue, another howl echoed through the night, followed by the distinct sound of heavy footsteps. The creatures were closing in on us, flanking us from every direction. The trap was set. "We're not going to make it," Sarah said quietly. Her eyes filled with fear as she glanced at me. "We are," I replied, my voice low but steady. "I'm not going down without a fight." In that moment, I made a decision. I slammed the truck into gear, veering toward the nearest transmission tower. The helicopter was right behind us, and the creatures were closing in. I couldn't outrun them, but maybe I could outsmart them. The truck hit the perimeter at full speed, and suddenly everything changed. The howls from behind us stopped. The creatures had hit an invisible wall and faltered. They couldn't cross the barrier. We made it, Sarah breathed, her voice filled with relief. But we weren't out of the woods yet. The helicopter hovered above us, its spotlight still blinding. It was clear now that the contractors weren't going to give up. They won't follow us beyond this point, Sarah said, her eyes scanning the horizon. The perimeter keeps them contained. The helicopter hesitated, then began to pull away, its spotlight flickering. But it wasn't done yet. It circled around, waiting for a chance to strike. "We need to keep moving," Sarah urged. "They'll be back. We don't have much time." I floored the gas pedal, pushing the truck forward. The helicopter stayed behind us, keeping its distance now that we were past the barrier. As we neared the highway, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in what felt like hours, I could breathe again. "We did it," I muttered, my hands still shaking on the wheel. "We're not done yet," Sarah replied, "but we're one step closer." As we merged onto the highway, I glanced back at the desert, knowing that it would always be with me. The creatures, the government, contractors, and the secrets buried in the sand, none of it was over. Not by a long shot. No one argued. We packed quickly, barely speaking. The plan was simple: hike out the way we'd come, back to the main trail, and then to the car. But as we shouldered our packs and turned toward the trail, Bryce stopped suddenly. "Not right," he said, pointing to where the trail should have been. Instead of the clear path we had arrived on, there was only dense undergrowth. Tangled bushes and fallen trees blocked what should have been our exit. "That's impossible," Kara whispered. "We came from there," I said, remembering the big pine with the split trunk. Julian pulled out his compass. "East," he said, pointing across the lake. "The trailhead is northeast of here. We can skirt the lake and then head that direction." It seemed like our only option, so we began picking our way around the shore of Whispering Lake, staying close. Together, the mist still hung heavy, parting momentarily before closing behind us like a living thing. About halfway around the lake, we found the remains of another campsite, one that clearly hadn't been used in a long time. A collapsed tent, fabric rotted and torn, a rusted cooking pot, and a backpack partially buried in leaves and dirt. Bryce crouched down, examining the scene. "This gear isn't that old. Maybe a year or two." I noticed a small notebook near what would have been the fire pit. Carefully, I picked it up and brushed off the dirt. The pages were warped from moisture, but still readable. It was a trail journal, the kind hikers keep to document their journey. The entry started normally. Enough notes about trail conditions, wildlife sightings, weather. The handwriting was neat, methodical, but the later entries showed a change. The writing became jagged, hurried, and words were crossed out repeatedly. The final entry read, "It knows what we sound like now. It can call to us using our voices." Michael followed what he thought was me calling for help. We found his boots by the water's edge, just his boots. Something dragged itself out of the lake last night. It walked on two legs, but didn't move right, not human. If anyone finds this, stay away from Nehima. I read the entry aloud, my voice faltering on the final warning. "This is sick," Kara said, backing away from the abandoned campsite. "Someone's messing with us. This is some Blair Witch stuff." "Who would go to this much trouble?" Bryce asked. "We didn't tell anyone exactly where we were going," Julian said, unnaturally still, staring at the lake. "Yes, we did," he continued quietly. "I posted our trail plan on the hiking forum, asked if anyone had recent reports from Nehima. Cold weight settled in my stomach. Had someone followed us here to frighten us? Or was something else happening? Something connected to the stories Julian had researched? "Let's keep moving," I said, tucking the notebook into my pocket. Evidence. I told myself. Not that I believed any of it, at least. Not really. We continued around the lake, the mist finally beginning to lift as the morning warmed. The eastern shore revealed another trail leading away from the water, and Julian's compass confirmed it pointed in roughly the right direction. "This has to connect to the main trail eventually," he said with forced confidence. We'd been hiking for maybe 20 minutes when Kara stopped abruptly. "Do you smell that?" The same odor from yesterday, decay and wet fur hung heavy in the air. But now there was something else mixed with it, something metallic, like blood. The trail ahead curved around a large boulder. As we approached, we saw dark smears on the stone, fresh blood, still wet in places, but beyond the boulder. The trail widened into a small clearing, and in the center lay the carcass of a deer, or what was left of it. The animal had been torn apart, its rib cage splayed open, organs removed, but it wasn't the work of a natural predator. The cuts were too precise in some places, too savagely random in others. The blood pattern around the body was wrong spread, outward in a perfect circle as if placed deliberately. "That's not a mountain lion kill," Bryce said, his voice tight. "Or a bear." "We need to go," Julian urged. "Now." As we backed away from the clearing, I glanced down and noticed something half hidden in the grass. A human tooth, adult-sized, with bits of flesh still attached to the root. We ran then, all pretense of calm abandoned. The trail narrowed again, winding through increasingly dense forest. The trees here were different older, gnarled, with bark blackened as if by fire. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. The only sounds were our labored breathing and footfalls on the spongy ground. After what seemed like hours but was probably only 40 minutes, we emerged onto what appeared to be the main trail. The path was wider, better maintained. Hope surged through me. "We made it," Kara said, relief evident in her voice. "This has to lead back to the trailhead," I said, though doubt lingered in my mind. Julian checked his compass. This trail runs east-west. The trailhead should be to the west. We turned west and began walking at a brisk pace. The forest seemed almost normal here. Sunlight filtered through the canopy. I even heard a woodpecker in the distance for the first time since we'd arrived. For the first time, I felt like we might actually make it out. Then we came to the sign. It was an official Park Service marker, but the wood was weathered, the paint faded. Nehemana Ceremonial Grounds. Restricted area, no entry. This wasn't on any of the maps, Julian said, his brow furrowed. So we go around it, suggested Bryce. Stay on the main trail, I said. Wait, I said, pointing to the ground. Fresh boot prints led off the main trail and into the restricted area. Our boot prints identical to the treads on our hiking boots. That's not possible, Kara whispered. We've never been here before, I said. But as I stared at those tracks, a memory surfaced, hazy, dreamlike, walking the same path in darkness, following a light that danced just ahead. The four of us moving silently through the trees. Only it wasn't us, not really. We need to go back, I said firmly. Turn around completely. This trail isn't taking us to the trailhead. No one argued. We reversed direction, walking east now, moving quickly but trying not to run. Running would make us pray. The sun was directly overhead when we heard it. Again, voices calling from the forest. Our voices mixed together in a discordant chorus that made no sense. Snippets of conversations we'd had around the campfire, words we'd spoken to each other in private. Don't listen, Julian warned, his voice barely a whisper. Don't respond, no matter what you hear. The voices grew louder, more insistent. I heard myself calling for help, my voice breaking with fear. Then Bryce's voice, shouting that he'd found the trail, Kara screaming in pain. It's not real, I muttered, pressing my hands to my ears. It's not them. We kept walking, eyes fixed ahead, trying to ignore the cacophony around us. The trail began to slope upward, becoming rockier. We were climbing out of the valley. Away from the lake, a good sign, I told myself. The trailhead was at a higher elevation. Then Kara gasped. Ahead of us on the trail stood a figure human-shaped, but wrong in ways that my mind struggled to process. Too tall, too thin, limbs that bent at impossible angles. It stood perfectly still, watching us from a face that seemed to shift and change even as I stared at it. For one terrible moment, it wore my face, twisted into an expression of hunger and malice. Then it was gone, vanishing into the trees with a movement too quick to follow. Run, Julian said, his voice a hoarse whisper. Don't stop for anything. We ran. Night was falling again, and we were still in the forest. We'd run until our legs gave out, then walked until we couldn't take another step. Now we huddled beneath an outcropping of rock, too exhausted to continue, but too terrified to sleep. Our water was running low. The protein bars and trail mix we'd packed seemed like a joke and substantial calories that did nothing to combat our growing weakness. But hunger was the least of our concerns. It was toying with us, the skip. That's what it was. I could admit it now, here in the gathering darkness. The thing Julian had researched, the creature from Navajo legend. It had drawn us into its territory, confused our sense of direction, and was now hurting us like cattle. But hurting us where and for what purpose? Bryce was the first to break our long silence. "We need fire," he said, his voice rough from thirst, "for warmth, for protection. You think fire will stop that thing?" Kara asked bitterly. "I don't know," Bryce admitted, "but humans have used fire against predators for thousands of years. It's instinctive." Julian nodded slowly. "There are stories. Some legends say skinwalkers fear fire, that it reveals their true nature. It was something to do, at least, better than sitting in darkness, jumping at every sound." Bryce and I gathered what dry wood we could find near our shelter, while Julian and Kara cleared a space and arranged stones for a fire pit. We worked mechanically, too tired for fear, as twilight deepened into true night. The flames of our small fire cast dancing shadows on the rock face behind us. We huddled close to the warmth, no one willing to venture into the darkness beyond its light. "If we survive until morning," Julian said quietly, "we head downhill. Always downhill. Most trailheads are at the lowest point of the trail system. If we survive," Kara repeated dully. I pulled the trail journal I'd found from my pocket and flipped through it again, hoping for some clue, some insight into what we were facing. The final pages contained frantic sketches, symbols that looked like a cross between letters and pictographs. "Julian," I said urgently, showing him the page, "do you recognize these?" He studied the drawings, his face grim in the firelight. "They look like protective symbols, DNA and origin, maybe. The hiker must have been trying to ward it off. Fat lot of good it did them," muttered Kara. "Wait," Julian said, sitting straighter. "Look at this." He pointed to a crude map drawn on one of the pages. "This could be Whispering Lake," he said, tracing his finger across the page. "And here, this might be where we are now." His finger traced a path through the illustrated terrain. "If this is right," he said, "there's a ranger station about 2 miles southeast of here." Hope flared briefly. Could we reach it tonight? Julian shook his head. Too dangerous in the dark. But first light, a sound cut him off. A wet slithering noise from somewhere in the darkness beyond our fire. Then another, closer. The fire seemed to dim, though no wind blew to account for it. "It's here," whispered Bryce, rising slowly to his feet. We stood back to back, facing outward toward the darkness. Julian held a burning branch like a torch. Bryce had his hunting knife drawn. A pathetic defense, but better than nothing. The slithering stopped. In its place came a sound more terrifying, a dry, rattling laugh that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Then, from the darkness, a voice, my mother's voice, though she was thousands of miles away. "Sweetie, are you there? I need help." My heart hammered against my ribs. It was her voice exactly, the slight accent, the way she always sounded slightly worried when she called. That's not her, Julian said firmly, gripping my arm. It's mimicking, pulling the voice from your memories. Next came Bryce's voice. Though Bryce stood beside me, pale and silent. Guys, I found a way out over here. Then Kara's laughter, high and unnatural. Julian's voice, reciting what sounded like a prayer. A shape materialized at the edge of our firelight. Humanoid, but wrong. Limbs too long, joints bending backward. Its skin seemed to ripple and shift, unable to settle on a single form. For a moment, it looked like Bryce, then Julian, then Mabu, distorted like reflections in a carnival mirror. Don't look at its face, Julian warned, his voice tight with fear. That's how it gets in. The creature circled our camp, always just. At the periphery of the firelight, testing, waiting. Its movement was jerky but fluid at the same time, like stop-motion animation. Brought to life, Kara began to recite something under her breath. I caught fragments of a prayer her grandmother had taught her. She'd mentioned once something about protection and sacred boundaries. The creature paused in its circling, its form rippling more violently. It seemed confused or agitated by Kara's words. Keep going, Julian urged her. I think it's working. Kara's voice grew stronger, more confident. The creature retreated a step, then another. The fire blazed. Higher, as if feeding off the thing's distress. Hope surged through me. Maybe we could drive it away. Maybe we could survive until dawn. Then the creature changed tactics. It began to shift more deliberately, its form settling into something recognizable. A middle-aged woman with Kara's eyes and mouth. A perfect replica of the grandmother she'd spoken of. Kara faltered, her prayer dying on her lips. Karina, the thing said in a perfect imitation of an elderly woman's voice. You're doing it wrong, child. Let me show you. Don't listen. I hissed, but Kara was transfixed, staring at the false grandmother with wide eyes. The creature extended one hand, two long fingers like talons, toward Kara. Come here, child. Let me help you. Kara took a step forward,